Okay, so I feel like this is going to be a little bit of a hard video to get across to the people listening to it. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. So you guys saw the title, you saw the thumbnail. We're talking about the idea that any future iteration of Broly as a character in Dragon Ball Super, the canonized Broly, if you will. I know a lot of people who really respect Dragon Ball lore do not hyper focus on the concept of canonization, but if you are one of those people, that's what we're talking about. What are we going to see from this character next? And really, at the bottom of this entire video, why am I excited about seeing the future of Broly in Dragon Ball Super? I think the best answer I can give anybody listening to this is the concept of originality. The concept of not relying on nostalgic concepts of a pre-established character with a lot of fan appeal being reintroduced into the main story of Dragon Ball Super and having to reconceptualize his character pretty much on the fly, or at least giving the fans an idea that this is not the same Broly that was introduced in movie 8, movie 9, and then movie 11 of Dragon Ball Z. To me, that is incredibly exciting. Let's get this straight. First and foremost, the concept of bringing back other villains, or at least concepts, ideas, characters, and all this other stuff that we've seen before in Dragon Ball has not been the most ecstatically popular thing amongst the fan base. But at the same time, it has resulted in some of the biggest multimedia coverage of the franchise in its entire run, both as an anime and as a manga ever since Toriyama started writing the original chapters of Dragon Ball. I think that there's a lot of ideas there and a lot of stuff to mine, so long as they take this character and try to do something completely different with him than what we've already seen. First and foremost, Broly should not be a rage monster in Dragon Ball Super. Yes, we did get to see a little bit of that in Dragon Ball Super Broly, giving him at least a little bit of a personality to avenge his father, and for everyone else around him to try their best to control his anger before he completely loses himself, and it takes a fusion between Goku and Vegeta in order to take him out completely. It's not the basis of a character that's been reintroduced into the series that I personally love in a way that would make me feel like this guy is going to be a mainstay. And before I go any further, let's not even have this argument. I'm sure a lot of people have already gone down to the comment section below and they're telling me that Broly's character was changed dramatically between what we saw in the original film in Dragon Ball Z and what we got from Dragon Ball Super Broly. I would argue that that's not entirely true. Yes, it is true that the Broly that we got in Dragon Ball Super did have love and respect for his father. Yes, it's true that this Broly was kind of a gentle Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type of concept of a character in Dragon Ball Super, and that was punctuated a little bit more with the new movie than it was back in the old days. But I would argue that there was still at least a glimmer of the exact same Broly that was originally introduced in the Dragon Ball Z days, that they just took that concept and put it into Dragon Ball Z, and the Broly we got for Dragon Ball Super Broly wasn't the best reinterpretation of the character, right? One of the biggest reasons that movie did as well is it wasn't just Broly. You were redoing Dragon Ball Zero, you were reestablishing Frieza and pushing the story forward. It was connected to Dragon Ball Super with the Tournament of Power being acknowledged, Frieza's new reintroduction into the universe, rebuilding of the Frieza Force, and all the implications there. To me, those were the more interesting concepts. Broly and everything that he brought to the table, to me, felt like just a rehash of everything that we've seen before. I feel like I'm not talking to the vast majority of the crowd listening to this at this point, right? A lot of people want Broly, expect Broly, and really have dreamt about Broly being part of the main story of Dragon Ball, not just since Dragon Ball Super Broly was announced, but literally ever since they first saw any indication of Broly in the main series, or even the movies that they put out with the original Z run. The reason I'm making this video, though, is to say I did not like Dragon Ball Super Broly. If you've watched my channel for any length of time, I'm sure you already know that. But one of the reasons I did not like Dragon Ball Super Broly is because they took the same concepts with basically the exact same characters and just trying to work all of that stuff into this movie in order to make Broly make sense to a general audience. And if you ask me, Broly as a character already makes sense to a general audience, whether or not he has empathy, intelligence, or just is a rage monster that we saw in the first couple of movies that he was introduced. That all being said, though, the fact that Broly is incredibly popular with the Dragon Ball community, the fact that Dragon Ball Super Broly became the highest grossing Dragon Ball movie ever to release in theaters, not only in Japan but also worldwide, gives me an idea. And I want to hear everyone's thoughts and opinions about this, but it makes me genuinely excited about the future of Dragon Ball, is that now, especially now that all they have done is just utilize the nostalgic concept of Broly while revitalizing, basically retelling his entire origin story and trying to make money off of it. Is it possible now that we are going to get, sometime in the very near future, a continuation of Broly in his entire character arc, or at least his entire story within this universe, as something less of an adaptation, less of just kind of a copy of what we got before, and more of an introduction or at least exploration into this one particular fan favorite character, trying to understand what makes him tick and why he wants to get out of bed every single morning. If you're asking me as a genuine fan of Dragon Ball, that is what I want. I want to see Broly go out of his way. I want to see the creators literally themselves going out of their way in order to make Broly a legitimate character, and one that I would be happy, I'm sure a lot of other people would be incredibly happy with, knowing that this person has way more depth in him than just simply calling out Kakarot's name or going rage monster when anything negative happens to him, like a complete child. Yeah, of course, losing your dad is not childish, but at the same time, they were building up his character, at least from the story of Dragon Ball Super Broly. They were building up his character for a little bit of time. Maybe at this point, he understands who he is, what he's fighting for, what he loves, and if he loses anything else in the realm of that, or if he loses just anything else in general, maybe he loses it and he goes after the entire multiverse instead of just simply, whoever is right in front of him at that time. To me, that would be an interesting take on the character. You don't have to go that route. I really think all you really have to do is focus on people who understand the stories that the fans want, the characters that the fans want to be focusing on, and go in and tell those stories, whether it's Moro or something completely different, or just in general something that tries to harken back to the glory days of Dragon Ball. Not just Dragon Ball, literally Dragon Ball Z, where we're getting big, ultimate, huge fights that go beyond the potential of the characters that we saw throughout Dragon Ball Super, as hard as that's going to be, and going back and understanding what makes these characters tick, what makes this story impactful for everyone who listens to it, and what makes every single person who watches the anime or reads the manga coming back for more. I think that would be really interesting, and I feel like that's something that Broly can do, especially now that we've gotten past the nostalgic part of his story, and they have to do something completely and wholly original to him and his fan favorite nostalgia concept that everyone seems to really be living by in the near future. I'm excited about that. I hope everyone else is excited about that. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell over by the subscriber button to notify you every single time I upload. It's been real.